Record now, and I'll allow Lorenzo to open the floor for us.
So good evening again. I think most of you were in the first webinar of the session. I hope you enjoyed. But just to give a brief introduction to the people who were not able to join our first session. So actually, I'm the PQD of District 109, and last year, together with David and some other people of the team, we did a HPL project to develop or to foster mentoring in our district. And we introduced the concept of a mentoring academy. So a place where we can train, mentor, as well officers of club to introduce a mentoring program. And all these 4 webinars we have planned, David mostly is leading, they are attached to our idea of a mentoring academy. And one other step we have taken, it was presented in our winter event in Bulgaria, where David had a workshop, and the material of tonight will be mostly, let's say, similar to the one already delivered in Bulgaria, and it was quite successful. So we had already, let's say, 1 webinar last week. Now we have a new one this week, and then we will take a bit of a break, even for us, and we will come back in March. And today, the focus will be introducing or going deeper to our mentoring model. We are MTC. It was the model we presented last time, but was about motivational training and coaching. And say that, I think it's time to leave space to David, that will introduce you in the topic of it. So I can introduce David maybe again. That is like a coach by profession, is even an opera singer, and he was division director of Austria last year.
Great, thanks, Lorenzo. And if we could, as you said, you're PQD, but you're also a PhD student in Munich. You have a full-time job as well. You're an agile coach. I think you've also got quite a lengthy background in all the things that you do. So thank you for that introduction. And yeah, we'll get into the webinar properly now for everybody. So I've put our website, or our email addresses there on the screen, so you can always review this later. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, feel free to talk to us and reach out to us. We've planned this break predominantly because next week I have something else on the Sunday evening, and I couldn't guarantee the time slot, but it also gives us a chance to consolidate what we've done in these 2 weeks and also to go a little bit further. And so if you do have any questions, and if you're watching this YouTube clip or you're reviewing this after the event, please do get in touch with us, because we'd be happy to work with you and hear your concerns as club members, as people who are in clubs and implementing mentoring or thinking about mentoring in that aspect. So for those of you who weren't with us last week, or just to remind us of what we did last week, we did a few things here. So we thought about questions, and we focused a lot on question asking. So maybe you've had some thoughts about where in your life you can ask questions, and this is really key. And I hope that maybe you've at least thought about some of the questions that you do ask others, or you have asked of you. We also want to be aware of our listening. Active listening was a hot topic that we discovered last week as being really important in the mentoring relationship, and also just in the sense of being an interesting and a useful person. So I know that if you think of Dale Carnegie, if you think of Ralph Smedley, and if you think of even Stephen Covey, I'm reading his book at the moment, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, again for a book club that I'm a part of. And he talks about, you know, speaking a third of the time of your listening. So really listening should be something that you're doing more of than the speaking. It's also, we wanted you to think about who are the mentors in your club currently. Maybe you have an established program, and we had participants last week who had definitely well-established programs, others who were thinking about it, others who had really nothing at all. And so identifying who are the people that are in there for you. Right. Craig, if you want to just put yourself on mute for us, thank you so much. That's great. We'll be able to keep going there. Great. So we've also thought about, if you don't have mentoring in your club, could you have it? Could you be the champion of mentoring in your club? And while there's no specific officer role, it does fall under the auspices of the VPE, President of Education, I wonder in the future whether there could even be another role, a VP of Mentoring, at least a champion of that within your club as well. And we asked last week, and again, you can be in touch with us, but what support do you need in terms of establishing a mentoring program? So if it's something you want to do, please get in touch with Lorenzo and I. We'd be more than happy to help you. I helped mentor a couple of clubs who were newly founded in Toastmasters last year and had a nice time. They didn't need a lot, but certainly being that point of support for those clubs, for me, was a very valuable experience. And so we want to support you as a district, to support the clubs, to support you as people who are really interested to take mentoring further. And as I suggested last time, don't use why questions. So really, when we ask people questions, when we go in with why, we have problems. So that was a quick review of some of the key things before last time. But also, just to remind ourselves, we talked about the mentor mindset. Now, this is really the approach to mentoring. And today we're going to go deeper into this MTC model. But just for those, just as a refresher, the mentor mindset really encompasses what we call essential skills. So these were the 4 that are kind of values and are things that we can individually take on, so that if we're empathetic with others, then we're showing concern. We also understand where people might be at, especially with new Toastmasters. Patience, of course. And if you think of your own journey in Toastmasters, maybe you realize that people were patient with you. You mucked it up. You didn't get that thing right, the timekeeper's delivery, but over time you did. And that patience paid off for you, as well as compassion for others in their situation. And of course, trust being, I think, as we said last week, the soft skills we're relabeling essential skills, and trust is a big component of that. We also worked on our active listening, as I said just now, question asking, and this builds confidence. And this is where we feel that when you integrate these essential skills with the Toastmasters values, if we rework them into respect, integrity, service, and excellence, we get rise. So rise to the occasion, rise in your skills, or raise your skills. But certainly, I mean, if we added an A in there to make it raise, we could add authenticity as not a Toastmasters value. But I think when we are authentic and implementing these values, then really it helps us to grow as people and as mentors, perhaps to pass on some really useful things. So it all begins with you. And this is really the point about the model today. I want each of you at the end to think about what aspects you want to implement in your own life and what possibilities you have to be a mentor, or if you've been mentored, to reflect on those things as well. So when we say it begins with you, what we're talking about here is that you must develop your own skills first. And we really appreciate that you've attended tonight, that you're watching this because you're obviously interested in developing some of your own skills. So if there's something that we say, we say, wonderful, go away and take that further. Take these ideas as gifts and then make them work for you in your own life. It's a privilege to be a mentor. And it's really not a power play. So too often we found or see and is mentoring, oh, I'm the mentor of such and such, aren't I? Great. But really it's a place of service. And it's one of the key values, as we saw before, for Toastmasters, that I try to live my life by. How am I serving my family, my wife, my children? How am I serving even the dog? Who was here on the bed behind me earlier, but she's moved off. But how do I serve people in my community, my church, within my organization, and of course within Toastmasters? And when we come from that mindset, a good mentor is definitely not playing power games. We don't protect our mentees, so we do want to allow them to fall, and that's really the idea there. And as I said before, a serving mentality. And we motivate by planting seeds. And this brings us to the model. This was a nice little link into that. So here is the model, just to review. And we're going to go tonight through each section. And I'm going to call on Lorenzo. We're going to do a little bit of a role play with each aspect of the model. And then what I want you to think about would be, what could you do in your club? Are you the motivator, the trainer, or the coach? With certain people, what role do you play? Who are the people in your club? And I will use examples from my own clubs. Who are the people that you call on for that kind of training and that kind of development as well. So what we're really looking at here is I see something in you, I will show you how to grow and improve. And then for the coach, together, let's discuss and help you achieve your goals, help you to move one step forward, which is really the idea of any style of coaching. So let's get into it. The first one, the motivator. So notice that we've changed the terminology from mentor. It's a mentoring model, but we go first into the motivator. This is the person who listens. This is the person who is a little bit of I think of in my own club, our 83-year-old Toastmaster. He's been a Toastmaster for over 25 or 30 years. He was area director back in the 80s, and he's a sort of man that says, David, I really see you developing quite well as the club president when I was. And I felt so chuffed to have somebody recognize and see something in me. Or he might say, wow, if you do this, I can really see you growing in that way. An encourager, somebody who perhaps can foresee things that I cannot see in myself right now. So take a moment to think about who are the motivators in your club, within your organization. Who are the people who just bring a level of, wow, I love being in the presence of that person and seeing what they are, listening to what they might say and receiving some advice. And maybe it's really feels quite nice, quite positive to have that. So to go a little bit deeper here, we suggest that if you want to be a motivator, that you need to start with a conversation. So you got to be careful. You can't just sort of slam in and just throw motivation around like it's just, sprinkling pixie dust everywhere, because I think people eventually will start to see through that. If you're doing just motivation for everybody, people will start to feel that it's a bit cheap. So you need to have a conversation with people, see where they're at in their own mindset. Are they ready to receive that idea, that seed idea there? It's the person who supports and guides, as I said, the 83-year-old in our club. And maybe there are other people. It doesn't have to be an older person. It doesn't have to be an experienced Toastmaster. It could be somebody who's relatively new, but shows a great positivity and is somebody who really is enthusiastic, but also, steers in the right direction. Wow, I saw you do that speech. That was really good. You should do more of that. In that sense. So it's not trying to model anybody on who they are. It's just simply saying, wow, I see what you're doing, and you're doing this. Now, I say here visionary or pace-setting style, and this comes from a book that I'll tell you about later. But the visionary style is that person who can really project, where is our club going to be in 12 months? It's often that president's role who sets the vision for the coming 12 months of a club, or the PQD and the division director of a district who really says, this is where we're going. So again, this motivator is the sort of person who might say, yeah, I could see you, not I could see you speaking on the world stage at TED or something like this, but simply might be saying, wow, this topic that you really tapped into tonight, I could really see you doing something really good with that. Keep it going. It's really great stuff. The pace setting style is, so some styles that I'm going to mention tonight create resonance. And the book is Resonant Leadership. And it's around the fact that some of our styles, when we speak and communicate with others, kind of lift and create harmony. Others create a little bit of disharmony or dissonance in that sense. So the pace setting style is one that can create dissonance, but it could be useful in the sense that when somebody is way out there. So I'm one speech and one workshop away from DTM. So people come and they say, oh, wow, that's amazing. So I've set a pace by moving far ahead of many of my colleagues in my club. But that doesn't mean I'm creating dissonance. I might look at someone and say, hey, but you can do it too. Why don't you come on the journey? Why don't you, if I can do it, you can. There's nothing special about me. And in that sense, that's where the pace setter, as somebody who's already 5 to 6 steps ahead, can be a wonderful motivator to give a new club member a confidence boost to be able to do that. Now, it doesn't mean, what the motivator doesn't mean is that you're then going to help that person with their speeches. You're not going to sit down and have more than a short conversation. The pace setting style is really just about moving forward or helping that person, the mentee in this case, the motivatee, to move forward and to feel confident and to catch up with them. How did you get on with that? Are you doing some of that? Did you try it out? What did you think? So it's not about getting involved into the nitty-gritty with them. And in our feeling, this is something that you can do anyone to anyone. It means that you don't have to be the experienced distinguished Toastmaster in order to motivate somebody. You could just be, you know, when you receive your feedback slips from people, you know, that's the moment maybe to plant that seed and motivate people a little bit as well. And so really it could be a role that anybody could play within your club and pass that on to others. So what we challenge in this model is that you have to be experienced, you have to be well into your speeches to play a part in the mentoring framework within there. So we're going to role play a little bit here, and this is where I'd like to call on Lorenzo. So if you're there, Lorenzo.
Sure.
So let's imagine a scenario where maybe Lorenzo's just given a speech, and I'm his motivator, or I choose to take on that role with Lorenzo. So Lorenzo, how did you feel tonight?
Oh, I'm doing quite fine. So I gave my speech and it was okay. So
Yeah. I mean, it was your third speech tonight. So this was really super. I could see that you've really started to develop a little bit. Are you feeling good about that?
yes and no,
Okay.
because let's say from one side I see some progresses. They are a bit confident, but then I see all the other people in the club, and I feel they are much better than me, and it will take 20 years before.
Well, Lorenzo, it might feel like that, but I can tell you, I see something in you, and I think that within a few more speeches, you'll start to gain some of that confidence. What we saw with Claudia tonight, I know that you can do as well, and I've already seen some ideas where I think, wow, you're really going to excel with that. So tonight, for instance, when you brought forward a really positive introduction, it was really great. So I'd say, look, keep it going. It's something that, you know, I think you really you set up your speech well when you do it right, and you really did it right tonight. So well done. I think you're going to really progress quite well.
Thank you. I will try my best.
Very good. Very good. So what did you notice about that style of conversation? So if you've got a moment here and you can pop something in the chat for everybody, we can take some feedback there. But what did you notice about this style of conversation and the types of questions that I asked? So feel free to write something in there. Well, Lorenzo, you can also reflect. How did you feel? What kinds of, you know, so maybe you're madly typing there. Very supportive. Thanks, Tim. Yep. It helped me to get over a bit of my insecurity. Good. And certainly when we're dealing with, or when we're inviting, when we're interacting with new Toastmasters, you know, that's often the common thing I see from our guests. Oh, everybody's so good in the club. And yeah, certainly everybody is good, but we need to support. And this is really a key thing, as you said, Tim, very supportive style. Yeah, we're not there to kind of muscle in and say, I'm so fantastic. Lorenzo, you did a great job tonight. I mean, it just reminds me of a time when, you know, I gave a speech like that for my third speech, and it was just absolutely fantastic. So, you know, you're going to be like me. You're going to be great. Fantastic. And of course, you know, we joke. I love role play, but thank you, Craig. Yeah, so the phrasing of the sentences, absolutely, very supportive. So when we come in, you know, in my mini role, my mini dramatization just then, if we come in with arrogance, or if we come in with negativity, we're going to shoot that person down. So it really is meant to be a supportive, positive aspect. So, and we're not focusing on, like, it's not an evaluation where somebody says, oh, like if we use the sandwich that says, here, you know, this was the good point, here's your bad points, here's your good point. We're not offering that in this motivator moment. So does it make sense to ask more about specific points he feels unsure about? Yeah, it depends on the environment, Tim. So I think, you could ask somebody how they felt, but you're just I wanted to check in with Lorenzo. That's why I asked, how did you feel? Or you want to engage. This is where we tread lightly, in the sense of, is the person ready for a motivation moment? Are they willing to receive this? Because sometimes I find that, I don't know about you, but when you've done a speech, when I was an opera singer professionally, when I've sung on stage, when I've given a concert, I don't want to get off stage. I don't want to sit down and have someone say, yeah, how did you feel? Or receive some negative. Sometimes it could be the negative comments, or the feedback, several hours later, minutes later, at some other point. But certainly, if we're unsure, or maybe, you see somebody who's really down on themselves. Oh God, I'm so stupid. Oh, I didn't say that. And you see them mulling over all the things they didn't do. So this is a nice moment to go in with the motivator idea, so that you can absolutely just lift that person. It's really about encouraging people in the right moment, but not overdoing it, because if we overdo it, it can seem insincere, and it can seem like it's actually, playing on people there. But it might just be one thing. Hey, I think you did that one thing really well. I used to have people, interestingly, I would give feedback or give an evaluation. In Austria, people love, the Austrians particularly love this sort of more negative, what did I do wrong? Everything's wrong. How many mistakes did I make? And so I'd often give an evaluation and say, hey, I thought this was really good. You did some great stuff. And I had a few people would come up to me afterwards and say, so what did you really think? And I'd say, I told you what I thought. I gave you the public evaluation. No. There must have been something I did wrong. Well, no, I thought it was all good. So naturally, I'm the sort of person who's more of a motivator. I feel it inside of me. And so I'm not going to dwell on negative things in that sense. So we do want to really lift people up in that way. So take an observation now, or let's apply this to your own lives as Toastmasters. Can you think of situations in your own club? And maybe somebody wants to share a short situation. If you've got 30 seconds, you could share with us now if you wanted to, or you can write something in the chat. But can you identify in your clubs people who are motivators, or have you seen these motivator moments? Is your club reflective of that? What do you think? Or have you ever been inspired by somebody's words? Likewise. So maybe you want to reflect on that as well. So I'd love to hear some of those things. Yep. So the president of my club is quite good at that. Yeah, good at that. Thanks, Lorenzo. That's great. And certainly I think if you're in the president's role, you definitely could be and should be a motivator a lot of the time. Sometimes you have to be strict, bad cop as well, because sometimes things don't go the way you want. And so you may have to bring that in, but generally, yeah, motivating, good. Good, I see, yeah, so Alina, the president, the VPE, and old members, good. So it's the old members that we really want to inspire with this model, which is super, because often, they've done maybe, I've got members in clubs that have done the old CM or CTM. They haven't gone on to do DTM, and they really just enjoy being in the clubs. And so we want to bring those people in and give them the opportunity. They don't have to do much more than just be wise older people, elders of the club. You might think about it there, like in indigenous cultures as well. I think we have a culture of very supportive feedback in general. Great, Tim. Great. I've heard of some clubs where they really, the evaluations aren't kind. The atmosphere can be very tense. It can be quite competitive. So this is great that you have a supportive club in general. A member of my club arrives early. He speaks to the honored guests to tell them what Toastmasters is about and how the meeting will be conducted. Yeah, that's great, Craig. So definitely, we want people to do those meet and greet roles, and definitely that might be a nice way to bring people in to actually practice your motivator moment, in fact. So when a guest speaks, maybe at the start of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, you might go up to that person and invite them to come back to the next meeting and use this motivator moment to say, hey, wow, you know, I think you could be quite good there. That's great. Or how did you feel? You know, was this something you want to continue to do? I think you'd really fit into our club. And often, you know, straight away, you know, if guests are going to convert, or if there's a high probability of conversion for them as well. Yeah, it's good to add that meet and greet. So this might be a great example of how to implement, excuse me, the motivator mindset into a specific role in your clubs. So that's great. That's not something that I'd thought of. So I think we'll take that and we'll run with that in terms of in further webinars when we talk about implementing this model within your clubs as well. So that's great. Good. So applying it, as we've now seen through Craig, thank you, and others, maybe you think of in your club specific moments to do that as well. Maybe there's I think in some clubs they talk about these member moments. So a member is highlighted for their positiveness or their praise or the achievements or something that they've had. Maybe they've done a speech outside of work that was successful, and then the club wants to make mention of it. So again, these moments where we can really bring back a positive atmosphere to the club. And yeah, guests will feel more comfortable, new members will feel more comfortable. So this is really a super idea. Here's a picture from Toastmasters. One of the official pictures. Now, if you think about it, look at the two people. Who is the motivator, do you think? Who's the motivator in this instance? The lady. Yes, absolutely. So you can see there, she's got a relaxed body language. She's, you know, holding eye contact, smiling. But what I see in this lady, and it seems really quite, for me, it's quite obvious here that just a warmth that's coming from her. She's listening, she's active, she's involved with this person. I don't see, even though she's wearing the badges and the things, you know, I don't see kind of an arrogance here, which I think is really important. We want to make sure that we're not coming across as a, you know, I think some mentors back in the past, historically, they were seen as a font of all knowledge or as a go-to point, and in some cases, mentors were just sort of copy me, do what I do, and you'll be fine. And as a singer, I had many mentors, you know, and sometimes you go to a teacher or you go to a mentor and you seek advice, and they can't always articulate that for you. So having the skills as we do as communicators to articulate to others is really important. Just plant that seed without it being too much. And we all remember those moments of overwhelm as well, where, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get used to all these new facets of a meeting? You know, this is where just focusing on one idea is great with somebody, and let it sink in. Let the seed. You know, we use this plant analogy, but we've planted the seed, and then you might leave it. And of course, you might water it. So then eventually it starts to grow a little bit, and you become, the second part of the model here is the trainer idea. So the trainer really is I say here uses, that's EQ is emotional intelligence and CQ is cultural intelligence. Because we're in Europe, we have a very diverse range of people in our clubs. I'd say that most clubs are heterogeneous and they have a variety of people from all sorts of countries. I think we have maybe 10 to 15 countries in our club from different people from different countries. I'm Australian living in Austria, for instance. And so we do need to have some cultural intelligence and some emotional intelligence here as the trainer. So the idea of the trainer is really about skill building. If you think of when you go to a gym and you engage a trainer, that person helps you build your skills. I'm an English communications trainer here in Vienna as well, and I sit with people and help them to build their skills. I'm not just planting seeds and saying, hey, you're fantastic, you speak English really well, wow, that was great. Yes, that's one part of it, but going deeper, it's about guiding and steering. It's about actually giving people the skills so that they can build their own way, so that they can actually take your advice and develop it for themselves. So in this part of the model, it's really about skill development, as I said before. And it could be that within your club or within yourself, you have specific skills that you want people to, that you want to impart or that you're known for. So I'm a voice coach, and so people come to me for more vocal aspects. I'm not necessarily the best speechwriter. There are other people in our clubs who could really be helpful for that reason. It's about doing the reps with people. You think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's about really getting into the nitty gritty, let's do it again. And maybe this requires a commitment between you and the trainee, the mentee in this point as well. So I say here, demonstrate. So you need to be prepared as the trainer to demonstrate and allow that person to replicate. And I say replicate, not repeat, because replication could involve that person understanding what you've offered and then providing or making it their own. And that's, I think, really important. So as a trainer, we're not insisting that the person do it exactly as we've done it. It's not a copy, carbon copy, Control-C, Control-P, paste idea. It's really about, here are the skills. This is what I believe you could do. And now what do you want to do? How are you going to implement this as well? We do need to connect on a deeper level with people in doing this, therefore. So it cannot be just a one meeting relationship or just something that you do in passing. We would suggest that this might be something that, with the help of a VPM, a VP of mentoring, or the VPE, that there's time given for that. And this can happen online. So I remember when I was doing some mentoring for a few people, and they asked for help on their first 3 speeches. And so I would help them, and they would, we would spend an hour together. They would demonstrate, I would give feedback, it would go deeper. They would, we'd pick apart certain aspects of the speech. And I'd say, I don't really understand that. Let's go deeper. How can we do this? So a little bit of coaching, but mainly, often let's just try the opening. Good evening, my fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Right, let's do it 10 more times. If you've ever learned a new language, you'll know that it takes repetition and really putting that in. So it could be face-to-face contact, it could be online contact you have with people, but it does require contact. Now this affiliative style, I say here, is really around that you are, when you think of like an affiliate person, it's somebody who's able to walk with you, that you're able to go together. So you're not demanding. I say here commanding. So the affiliative creates resonance. The commanding style creates a bit more dissonance, but there might be an element where you do need to have that approach. I'll give you an example from my own life. I taught my wife how to drive. So when she was newly pregnant, she was an adult already and hadn't learned to drive. And I said, okay. So we jumped in the car the first time. I said, I have to tell you straight up, I have more knowledge on this subject than you. So at this point, if I say something, then it's for good reason. And if I'm short and direct, it's because we need to do it straight away. So please understand that. So it was more of a commanding style. Then over time, it became more of an affiliative style because I was able to put in a suggestion. Now, when my wife drives, I don't, pay any attention, and we get where we need to go very safely. So there's no drama. That was years ago that I did that with her. But there's a time there to command, and there's a time there to walk with and to pass on the information, the ideas, and the input to somebody there. And I think it works best in a one-on-one approach as well. So we don't need to think of it in terms of groups. It's really just you working with that person and giving them more skills. So I say here, commanding doesn't have to be aggressive, but you might ask the person to at least try what you've asked for first, and then they can replicate, then they can go further with what you've done from there. So, and I say here, think of the standard way that you're in your meetings. Maybe there's a general way that the grammarian and the timekeeper says their opening. In our club, the timer, yes, I'm going to do time. I have the green, the yellow, and the red. Here are the times. Then we've got 30 seconds, and it follows a script in that way. So if your club is one that very much has a prescriptive style of meeting, in terms of those small roles, then that may be something that you do need to command and say, this is how we do it. You forgot that point. And so the person gets the basics of the role, and then from there, they can make it their own. So if I can ask Lorenzo to jump on again.
Coming.
If you're there, great.
Yeah.
So let's give a little demonstration there.
Mhm.
So Lorenzo, is there a role? So let's imagine. So Lorenzo, I see you put yourself down for a role next week. What role are you going to do?
Yes, I decided to do this role that is the joke of the day,
The
but
joke of the day.
I
Ah,
feel super uncomfortable. I made a
yeah,
joke today in my meeting and nobody laughed. And
and
this is
nobody
for real.
laughed. Okay, okay. So do you know what the joke of the day is? What's it designed to do in the meeting? Do you know? Do you have any thoughts?
It's at the beginning of a meeting, and my understanding is just to, let's say, at least make people laugh. So we start with a good mood. That
Yes.
will be my idea.
Good.
And of course, from a personal level, is to learn a bit some humoristic skills.
Yes, yes, because joke telling is very much a skill that we have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
utilize as there as well. So the important thing to remember, Lorenzo, is that when we tell jokes, certainly in Toastmasters, we have to be careful. Certainly no sexual jokes, no political jokes, and no religious jokes. So Toastmasters are very particular about the joke theme needs to be in a certain way there as well. So now, do you have a joke already in mind that you thought you might bring to the meeting?
No, and since I feel I'm not able to do jokes myself,
Hmm.
I will search in internet and if there are some jokes. And I want to
Good,
take one that
good.
makes sense for me.
Yeah, so why don't we have a look together? So let's imagine we look together, we find a joke. So then I might say, okay, Lorenzo, why don't you deliver that joke for me? And then Lorenzo delivers the joke. I say, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Why don't you try a little bit of this? This is how I might deliver that joke, Lorenzo. And I deliver the joke for him. Da 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 da. We laugh. Ah, that's interesting. Why don't you try that now, Lorenzo? And then Lorenzo would start, and we just go back and forth, until he feels confident that he could tell the joke next week. He doesn't need to have memorized it, but maybe there's certain ways, words, pronunciation, there could be other issues, or it could be finding 2 or 3 jokes together where we sit down and say, okay, so now you've got 3 jokes. So your job next week, is to pick one and to move forward. And then maybe before the meeting, if I'm able to join the meeting with him, or maybe I check in as his trainer, how are you feeling about the joke today, Lorenzo? And so next week we check in again, and he might say, yeah, I don't know. And so I'm really maybe there with him. Maybe I sit next to him in the meeting just to sort of be closer so that he feels like he has that support from me as well. So I think really that could be quite interesting. So we go really from a directive to allowing then for Lorenzo to make the decisions as well. But the training aspect would be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So if we used a different example, let's say the R counter of the meeting. So Lorenzo, have you done the R counter role before?
Oh yes, a couple of times,
Yes.
and always. Sometimes when there are all these super expert speakers, I have
Mm-hmm.
difficulties really to see what they make wrong. Like because
Ah,
you need to check everything is or but as well when they speak, they say a lot of times so there is a lot of
so
things you need to
yes,
pay attention, and
yes.
sometimes I get confused.
Yes, and just remember in clubs like your Italian club, allora, or maybe there's other filler words. So we're also listening for words that people make as a regular sound instead of pausing, instead of stopping or creating space, they fill it with sound. So remember, it could be words like that as well, Lorenzo. But have you worked out what you might say? And so again, have you worked out what you're going to say in the meeting? We get that kind of script going as well. Good. So again, maybe you have some observations. I mean, we haven't done this online before. When we were in our workshop, we had more time, and what we did in each workshop, with each section of the model, what we also did is had people do this kind of role play together in small groups. So if you want, thinking about now due to time, I'd say think about when can you be the trainer? Who can you train? Who needs training? Who may have come to you in the past? And what kinds of topics have you helped them with? So it'd be great for us to know from you now, what kinds of topics have you helped train people on in the past? What were some of the areas? So was it meeting specific roles? Was it, listening before the meeting, helping people out that way? So feel free to add something to the chat. Great. Meeting roles, officer roles, how to organize a speech contest. That's a good one. Yes, we're coming up into speech competition time. And yeah, new clubs sometimes need that training. They need the support from people. Otherwise, it can turn out to be things don't run the Toastmasters way. And we know for those who've been in Toastmasters a few years, you see the sameness that gets carried on each year. And that's for a reason, I think. You know, when I was club president, I looked at what the previous president had done when I kind of knew I was going to do that, and then we'd go from there. And welcome, Christina. Nice to see you again. So how to access and follow pathways. Yeah, absolutely. That could be sitting with somebody, making sure that they're accessing pathways, that they've logged on, that they've done the assessment, and being hands-on with them. Let's do it together. Bring your computer. We'll sit down together. Is that what you want to do? You know, help them pick their path, help them to understand what they need in there as well. So these are moments, if we think about it, it's really like the, I just have to move my thing. It's really like the coach, like the, sorry, not the coach, the personal trainer, standing on the sidelines with the person. So who's the trainer in this sense? We do not do much training. Yeah. So Tim, this might be something that, you know, for new members, there could be, I've often said in my club, we could have an education moment where we have people deliver the kind of standard way we deliver the timer, the grammarian, or what key factors need to be involved, and then allowing people to demonstrate, replicate from that as well. And yeah, Alina, the man is the trainer, supporting the athlete on the left, the lady, and sort of guiding, suggesting, maybe they've already done some sprints, they've been out on the ground together there as well. So when we think of the trainer, as I say, this is a role that we would take quite seriously, because you're also imparting and passing on the knowledge. This is where understanding the hard skills that come in with this as well. And remembering too that you think of your own journeys in Toastmasters, too much too soon can lead to burnout. And that was something that I heard from somebody very early on, that when we push people too hard, you know, suddenly, you know, boom, you're president. Oh, you're on the board now. And then boom, boom, boom. And 2 or 3 years later, people say, oh, I've had enough. This is too much. You know, I can't volunteer all the time for everything. I was in a contest. I did this, I did this, I did this. So we want to be careful as trainers to just feed people what they need for now, and then give them a bit more, and then give them a bit more, and follow up with people. It's honestly, you know, something that I think is lacking sometimes. We get the sale, we get the job done, but then the follow-up side is a little bit missing. So it's worth, if you've got a trainee and you're working one-on-one, to think about, you know, sending a short message. Hey, how'd you go tonight? How'd you feel? I've been training with a fellow, one of my, for ACG, my 3 speeches, again, different fellow, but we've been really working more intensely in more of a training style, where he sent me speeches, I've given feedback, we've gone back and forth, had some online meetings and some telephone calls as well when I can't be with him in person. And when he's done his speeches, so there was one speech I couldn't be at, but you know, at 9:30, I knew the speeches would have been finished. How did you go? How did it feel? And he gave me some quick feedback, and you know, was able to support him and just feel like he has this trainer. So maybe you have a gap here, like in Tim and his club. Maybe you want to implement a training program. And so think about, who are the trainers? We have some excellent trainers in our clubs, people who are professional trainers, like I am in environments, but there may be just people who have a really good skill at something specific. And this is where maybe within the mentoring environment within your club, people list their skills. I'm a speechwriter, I'm a speech deliverer, I'm great at openings, I'm good at all the small roles, I love the R counter, it's my favorite role, I'm the joke, as we did in our example, the person who loves jokes. I'm not a joke teller myself, so I generally don't sign up for joke of the day. and I try not to deliver those, but there may be others who are really good at that, and so they can impart their knowledge to others. And it's really about giving the tools, giving the techniques, and then allowing people to go on from there, so that when they're playing, like in this picture, they're able to play to the best of their abilities. So our final part of the model is the coach aspect. And coaching is very much a hot occupation now, and a lot of Toastmasters you may have found in your groups and clubs are trainers and coaches, and there's kind of a natural affinity for those of us who want to keep up and practice our skills, but in a non-professional environment, is part of the reason we joined Toastmasters. And, you know, I personally joined Toastmasters to create a network for myself. I'd moved to Vienna. My wife had a job. I didn't have a job at the time. I was looking after the kids. I needed some time out. And I saw Toastmasters as a great opportunity for me to network with others. And I was already a coach. And I remember people saying to me, well, why are you here? But now I realize I'm here because I want to practice and I want to get better as well. And, you know, there are other people in my clubs who can help me to get to that next level. And so the coach, if we follow a more traditional view of coaching, is about what is my next step. It's about sitting down when you've done that first level of pathways and saying, right, what do I do now? If you're in the old legacy program, it would have been about, okay, which manual do I do next? What am I interested in? Where do I go? And you don't necessarily need a trainer and you don't need a motivator, but you need someone willing to sit with you who can say, okay, well, what skills have you developed? What skills do you want to develop? Where's the gap? And that person has some knowledge to help you perhaps find that next aspect, to walk that way a little bit as well. So club in the next couple of months, we'll use table topic section for all 7 club officers to explain, 1 to 2 minutes to motivate members. Area director will be the table topics master. Yes, great. So thanks for sharing that idea with us all, Craig, there as well. So this is a coaching moment as well. So really to show people what's possible, where the next steps are, and obviously to advertise what's happening as well for upcoming elections and things like that as well. And that really is something where people can ask questions. And if you're a coach, you must be good at asking questions. This is really important. So we want to look at it being around improvement. It's not as, it does evolve a little bit of flexibility. As a trainer, you can say, do it this way. Now I see you do it, great, and it's quite clear. The coach can be a little bit more around just general improvement for people. So it's not sitting down and doing the nitty-gritty, but it's just providing that framework. And I say here strategic questions, and it really is a mixture of both directive and non-directive coaching. So directive coaching would be, I think, why don't we explore this? Could this be an option? And really moving somebody in a direction, whereas non-directive but strategic is leaving things open and allowing that person, whichever way they go. When I studied life coaching, we were always encouraged to use the non-directive form of coaching, where the coachee, the Toastmaster that you're coaching, leads the way. If the person says, I really would like to do this particular pathway, well, great. Okay, let's explore that. No, that's crap. And you're not giving your opinion as a coach. You're allowing and supporting the person to find their way. But you might, of course, apply what you know. And you might advise, you might give advice, but you might first say, could I give you some advice here? No, I'm fine. Okay. Yes, I'd like some advice. Okay. Well, yeah, sure. So I think, considering you and but we have to have in the coaching style, the other person's interests as paramount. And this might sound obvious, and maybe more and more of the world as we move into 2020, we do find we coach friends and family. We're not trying to tell people what to do, but it's worth just remembering that in a coaching style, it's allowing the person to express themselves, find their way, but providing a structure and using a democratic style here as well. So both of these styles create resonance, they create harmony, and allow the person to be heard. And I say allow the person to find their way. This is really super. Open questions, like we said before in the last webinar, no why questions. These are open questions that we're looking to create with people. And it's really not about replication, but about evolution. It's the next level for somebody that we're looking at here, helping them to find their way. So again, maybe you have some people in your club who are coaches, the sort of people who are naturally gravitating towards fulfilling that role, who just always know the right question at the right time, and it delivers a result. So if I can call on Lorenzo again a final time.
Here we are.
We've done this before, which is good. So, so Lorenzo, congratulations! You've finished level 1. This is fantastic news. Yeah, pathways.
I'm super happy. I got even a ribbon.
Yeah, amazing. And I was really pleased I could be there for your ceremony. So, where do you feel you'd like to go with your Toastmasters journey now?
I think I don't know actually. So
okay.
I think now there is some other projects to do. I didn't even check too well.
Yes.
I know now it's level 2, and there are some speeches, some other things. So
absolutely, yeah.
So I didn't look around. Let's say forward.
So we probably should have a look together then, perhaps, because we might see that there's, of course, new challenges in the next level. And I would really encourage you to keep going. I think you're doing a super job. And we want to consider, but where would you like to go? So your first path was on leadership. That was what you did from the assessment. So you had leadership as your as level. But what do you think might complement leadership in terms of your life and where you want to go?
So in general, so one thing is for me is, say, I would like to have a bit more experience on managing a team, because sometimes it happens at work, in project, and as well. And I have difficulties, especially to manage strong characters, or let's say that I feel they are not very collaborative. So I would like to find ways to experiment or to say try a bit this team management skills.
Yeah. And have you thought about maybe which of those paths it might fit into?
I think I've seen, especially in the, let's say, advanced levels.
Yes.
Not, yeah. There are some projects where you need to organize something and to manage a team. And, so it's something that probably I will choose a few things. And if you have any suggestion based on your experience, what could be some of the opportunities, let's say?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, Lorenzo. So I see here in the 10 pathways that are existing within Toastmasters that one is called team collaboration. This might suit this desire for you for managing teams more effectively. What do you think about that? Do you think we should explore that?
Yeah, why not? It sounds great.
Yeah, good. So let's go in, and maybe we've got our computer open and we can say, look, why don't you log in? And I see here, yeah, let's have a look at team collaboration together, and we'd go through, what are the key points to that? And do you think this suits your, so we've had a little look. Do you think this suits what you're wanting to achieve with your Toastmasters journey, Lorenzo?
Yeah, I think it, yeah, because I think is a good opportunity, a good thing to, let's say, to carry on.
Okay.
Challenge myself.
Sure. And of these 10 paths, would there be any others that you're also interested in?
Oh, coming back to my problem of a joke of a day. Let's say, I think this one, a new one, humoristic speaking or something like that. Something that, again, is a big challenge for me, and it's something that I will like to train myself.
Sure. Well, maybe you could focus on that with your trainer, because you're working with Simon, aren't you, as your trainer?
Yes.
Yeah, so Simon can help you focus on the training. So I'd say let's leave that to him. But I'm happy to be, I'm happy to support you through team collaboration as well, if you're interested. At least get you started, and then maybe you've got some questions, and we can find, if I can't answer the question for you, I can find the right person perhaps to help you there as well, which would be good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. So you sign up, take that first step forward. Let me know when you've signed up, Lorenzo, and then that way we can explore the pathway together. And then maybe you have some questions, and I'm here to help you. Okay.
Thank you, David.
Super. Great. All right. So that was a little role play on the spur of the moment. Again, thanks Lorenzo for playing the game as we've gone through. So again, what are your observations of the conversation? What did you see? What maybe you have other thoughts and feedback as well that we can incorporate into this message for everybody? That maybe you see a difference from the coach to the trainer to the motivator. So pop down some ideas now. And Lorenzo, you might reflect on how you felt as well in this process. So it's often, I've written some notes here for myself, but in the coaching environment, good. So it helped me to get clarity on what I wanted to do. Yes. Now, of course, it helps. You know, I must admit myself, I'm not deep into pathways yet because I'm on the legacy model. But even just quickly looking at the 10 paths that are available through Lorenzo's questions, you could help him prepare. So it's not about saying, hey, why don't you go and explore everything? He might come back and say, yeah, I looked at team collaboration. It's not for me. I'm not interested. Okay, well, then we go back to the square one and we see what else could be interesting for him. Maybe innovative planning could be there, or motivational strategies could be useful because it's, you know, more into or persuasive influence. So all of these may have aspects that tie into team collaboration, but that was the key word that I heard from him, and I want to draw on that. I want to follow up on that with my questions as well. So hopefully you have observed more question asking, more just providing space for Lorenzo to express himself and to make him feel like, yeah, he could continue on and he should. It's not about saying, you know, you're going to be a champion speaker. It's really just about saying, what's that next step for you? Where do you want to do that? And again, who in your club would you say are the coaches? Who are the people who, you know, seem to be able to ask the right question and take you a few steps down the road there as well? So we want to think about it in the sense of it being a strategic relationship. You sit down with the computers, you nut it out, you've got your Toastmasters.org pages open, you're drawing up notes, you know, it's everybody's adding to the notes page, and but it's really with the vested interest of the person who's receiving the coaching. So it's not prescriptive, it's not wholly directive, like, yep, just go and do this, you know, you'll be great at that. Motivational strategies, yeah, awesome, just go do it. Yeah, great, good coaching, you know. It's really not. You must get the buy-in. You notice I said, hey, Lorenzo, does this seem like something you want to do? Yeah, he said, yep, this is for me. I want to be involved. And this is the non-directive approach. We get the buy-in, and then I might go further and I might say, so Lorenzo, when do you think you would have, do you have a chance in the next week to have a look at the material? When can we expect to have our next session where maybe you've talked about it as well? So for me, the coach model, the coach aspect of this model involves probably 2 or 3 sessions, but it's not necessarily a long-term thing. And the whole structure around these 3 types of activities frees up people from feeling like they have to be the be-all and end-all for that one person, both the motivator, the trainer, and the coach. So really what we want to suggest is that this can be split into 3, and you might be one person, one thing to one person, and something completely different to the next person. Or you may wish to only be that style of person, and so people, you know that in general you're the trainer or you're the coach. But you know, you have a certain style within that as well. So it may be something that inspires more people to take part in your mentoring because they know they can just dip their toe in and participate in some way, which gets more people involved, especially our older members, as we said before, especially club officers. And if you're already the president of the club, maybe you realize, I need to be more motivated this year than trainer because otherwise I push people away and I don't have time for coaching. But I can still be a motivator and I'm still playing a part in the meetings as well. And as we saw with guests, with Craig's suggestion, that's a great one, where we've got the ability to inspire others coming in. So we can try these out in our life, in our club life, but we can also try these out in our normal lives, in the sense of when we're out and about with others as well. And this is where common courtesies, come in as well. They can be motivating moments where you're providing a smile and an interest in somebody. And other times you sit down and you're coaching somebody through a role, or you are training somebody on how to use something new at your workplace as well. So for further reading, you might want to think about primal leadership. This is the power of emotional intelligence. And I brought that forward before in the training section, emotional and cultural intelligence. I didn't go too deep into those areas. Many of you may already know a little bit about those, but the idea really is that emotional intelligence is about being smart with your feelings and not controlling, but understanding and being aware of yourself. And of course, if you're interacting with somebody as a motivated trainer or coach, you do want to see the person in front of you. It's like understanding your audience. Who are they and what do you need to say? In this instance as well, it's about who's in front of you and where do I need to go with them? And these styles that we've talked about tonight are presented in this book, Primal Leadership. And as I said, the first 4 create resonance. The last 2 create dissonance, in that they can push people away. But in tonight's webinar, I've really felt like at times, as a pace setter, if I am setting high standards, if I am excelling myself, if I'm doing the projects, I'm playing a part as an officer, or I've played a part as an officer in the past, people, rather than being put on a pedestal, sure, but you can provide advice, you can be the motivator, and it comes with credibility because you've already worked a few steps ahead from people. As long as you're not driving people to come with you, come on, everybody should be doing 100 things like me because I am. That's not the point of pace setting in this webinar. It's really about setting a high performance. Do as I do. You can do it as well. Why not? Come along. Let's do it. Let's increase the standard of our club. This commanding could be, as I said, in the trainer section, it could be very useful to simply say, please try it once my way, and then we can evolve it. So it's not about recreating the wheel. Toastmasters very much, if you've been around a while, works very similarly, so that you can go to any club in any part of the world and you basically get the same experience. And that's what Toastmasters is modeled on. So it's not a carbon copy, but there's definitely a theme that runs through most districts, most divisions, areas, and clubs. And when we follow that, it really works because it's been going for, quite a few years now. And, we've just had the 142nd birthday celebration of Ralph Smedley or something. So, he set this up a long time ago. And it'll be interesting to see what and how he feels that mentoring, I've got his books, I should read them maybe by the next session, look at what were his roles and thoughts and feelings around mentoring there as well. So we've presented tonight the model, the motivator, the trainer, and the coach. So I'd encourage you to think about what you might do. And I'll leave you with a little quote here from Oprah Winfrey, because I was using Google and I realized here. So she says, a mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside. I think that's very fitting for what we're trying to achieve with this model for you, that you can take this to your clubs, that people can find where they might fit, in how they fit with others, and then at the same time, just build hope for yourselves as well, that you can achieve things within your clubs as well. So I hand, excuse me, I hand back to Lorenzo before my voice cuts out. I've been a little bit sick this week, but if there are any questions, we could take them now, or we can end the webinar. So we'll hold on the recording a few minutes, Lorenzo, while we ask, are there any questions, or do you have any thoughts and feedback? Thanks, Craig. Yes, I'm on the tail end of this. It's just sometimes, after an hour of speaking that I need to grab a drink of water, but I'll be fine. Thank you.
So in the meantime, I really thank you, David, for another great webinar and all the effort put. And I was very entertained as well, and it helped me in my Toastmaster career through our role playing. And so there is also a question that I leave to David. and then maybe I stop recording other things.
Okay, so Tim, you're asking, is the MTC model part of the book? No, it's not. So the MTC model came through Lorenzo's high performance leadership project, where there are a few more of us involved on the project, and we kind of sat down and we thought, well, mentoring, the problem is the lack of uptake, the lack of structure, and there's a lot of responsibility. And in the last webinar, we talked about the manual on mentoring, the old legacy manual, and it lists, 14 different values that, if you think about, no one person has all 14 values, and there were all these inputs about what you should do as a mentor. And so it came about that we really felt that it was not necessary to have all three. For me, the connection with the Primal Leadership book is that I read the book by Daniel Goleman, Richard Beatzis, and Annie McKee, and I felt like it really spoke to me in terms of communication styles. And it's really about understanding that there are certain communication styles that we all naturally have. And if you've ever done any of the DISC assessment, for instance, you'll know that the different colors, and I know Lorenzo's done some work on the learning styles as well, where there are different quadrants of people. And so anything like that, where you've understood from yourself what it is that you've done, then you can sort of aim that maybe you're not a motivator, you're a trainer, because you have a more direct style at times, but you really give people a good basis for something. So we're just trying to pull together some ideas there. And in our workshop in Bulgaria, we also brought in some of the ideas from John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, which just briefly, the bottom level is the responsibility. So you're a club officer, great. A lot of people take personal power from that, but it's really about going to the next levels, which are where you create the relationships with people. And this is where the model would help. And then of course you get the results that you need in your club. So in all 3 of these situations in this model that Lorenzo and I and the others came up with, it's really about helping somebody to move forward and to giving them the skills that they need, building the relationship as is needed, and there are differences, and then moving together from there. So I hope this may answer your question or give you a little bit more depth around what we've aimed to achieve from this. And from here, in our next two webinars, we aim to really work more into how can you take this model, and we'll develop some materials eventually so that clubs are able to implement these more specifically, and how and what structure is needed around that as well. So we'll be able to really aim to support you, not just sort of now go do it, but the idea is to provide eventually through the district some materials that you can take with you, maybe read the book or just brush up some websites, some additional reading, and then go from there. But what we're not trying to do is replace what's within Toastmasters, because there's already some officially endorsed ideas around mentoring, but really to lift and just to see whether this works in the club environment. I know Lorenzo's very passionate about it, and we have also Metaxia, our district director of 109, who's very much in support of strengthening mentoring and potentially going European-wide with this idea and this model as well. So we're talking with other districts as we go along too, because they have input, they have ideas, and they may be doing similar things. So it's about coming together as a community in Europe, certainly. Good. Any other questions? And Christina, we'll share the materials as we've developed them further along. It'll be a combination of some of these slides that we've presented tonight, which were on the basis of, as we said, the Bulgarian workshop, which is on the basis of the HPL. Lorenzo's already shared some material there in the Google Drive, so you could go through some of that and just start to become aware of our ideas as well. And this webinar, as I said, will be available shortly through Frank Kaiser, who's our public relations social media manager for the district, and he'll be able to distribute and tidy up the webinar as well. So any final questions from anybody?
So in that case, I thank you again, David. I stop the recording.